From the studios of the Bakersfield Californian, it's time to open up with real people and real talk about real stuff. And now, a special welcome to our friends throughout California, across the nation, and around the world to this week's edition of Open Up.
Hey, good morning, Bakersfield, Kern County, and all the ships at sea. Welcome to Open Up with Don and Tina. This is my great friend, Don Clark.
And Bob Prater is filling in for Tina, who's, she's off to Nashville. She's off to listen to the Grand Ole Opry and all that good music stuff back there. So off on a big adventure. But glad to have you. Hey, a special hello to all our friends over in Las Vegas, 4 hours away. We enjoy coming over and seeing you, and thanks for joining us here. Let's just get right into this. What would you think about going to a school where there are no grades? Ever since we've been in school, we bring home on our report card. And got A, B, C, D. A lot of C's on mine.
Well, there are a few D's on mine. Come on.
Yeah, a few of those too.
Oh, sure.
But anyway, there is a school district here in the Valley that has done away with grades. And we want to find out how that's working and why they did that. So let's just go right now to our guests here. We've got the principal of the school, Nicholas Namba, and Javier Romero, one of the students. So, Nicholas, we're going to start with you. When did this start that you decided your district was going to do away with grades?
Well, first off, thank you guys for having us here. I would say that the focus on doing away with grades wasn't really the true intent. I think what we were looking for is how best are we going to empower our kids to really own their learning, not just to receive instruction and walk away having instruction delivered to them, but also actually being a part of what they experience every day in their learning. And so along that path, on a very long way down the path, in terms of logistics, the grades didn't necessarily disappear because we still have a 1, 2, 3, 4 numeric scoring system that the kids actually use. But the expectations placed on us as educators as well as on the kids, it's so much more meaningful for us.
So you say the kids actually use the grades. Do they grade themselves, or how does that evaluation take place?
It's in both ways. We still have our the traditional mindset of a teacher is we use the term learning facilitator because they're not there to just deliver all the instruction. They're there to facilitate kids in their learning and their acquisition of knowledge. And so the learning facilitators still use it in a way where they give formative assessments and they correct work in the same fashion. But the learners are also self-assessing their work. They're working collaboratively with partners to decide where is their proficiency level, and that's what everything is really gauged off of at this point. It's, are they proficient at the learning target or the Common Core standards on a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4. If they aren't, getting support from one another, getting support from the learning facilitator, in any way getting that support to get them to proficiency.
No, that brings me to a question. I heard you mention the two words that my wife is a teacher, and so there are two words that strike fear into the hearts of teachers, and that's Common Core. Mm-hmm. How does this measure up to the Common Core standards?
Common Core it's a new version of standard, right? So there's rigor that comes along with it, but there's also depth in terms of the reason why they exist now. Right. And so what we're trying to do is prepare our kids in a different way for the expectations that are out there beyond just our learning environment, beyond the walls that we have them in every day. And so to us, I would say for Lindsay anyway, it allows us to focus our learning for our learners and really expect something that's deeper than what we were experiencing in the 97 standards before, where we were kind of knocking out the 97 standards but not really seeing a big picture in entirety that brought them all together. So really trying to make it that deep, meaningful, rich experience that they're walking away with so that it's in their memory, so that it doesn't just get lost.
I want to speak to our producer, Chris McCullough. We've got a quotation, I think. Are we able to bring that quote up right now? Is that a yes or a no?
There it is.
There it is. Okay, let's just read this. The key to educational transformation is not to standardize education, but to personalize it, to build achievement on discovering the individual talents of each child, to put students in an environment where they want to learn and where they can naturally discover their true passions. Sir Ken Robinson, who is Sir Ken Robinson? And this quote you use in your literature kind of as a central theme of what you're trying to accomplish. Tell us about the author of that quote.
This is actually the signature for my emails. And so really the heart of the message is that our goal and what we're trying to do is personalize education for every learner. And I'm going to have Javier talk here in a minute about what that feels like and maybe a little bit about the difference of what it's brought to the table. But essentially what we're trying to do is take away the concept that we can deliver the same message in the same way, in the same method to all the learners that we see every day, and get to the realization that our learners today need a much more personalized experience when they walk in our door. Whether it's about their interests or whether it's about their learning method or style or whether it's about just a certain topic that might strike them, we can get them all of the knowledge and skill sets that they need through all of those manners. And so I'll have Javier, if you're okay, talk a little bit about what that feels like.
Now, Javier, what grade are you in?
Fourth.
You're in the fourth grade. All right, tell us about how they personalize learning for you, what you're doing different from maybe the person on your left, the person on your right.
Well, in Kennedy, it's not, if you're in this grade, you can't move on. You can't move on. So if you're ahead on something, they let you move on when you need to. And if you need some more help, they'll help you. And in our school, we started personalized learning time, and that's a time where if you need to catch up on anything, that's the time to do it.
So if you're really good in math, you could be doing what, sixth grade math? Can you move on? How fast can you move, and how far can you move ahead in your learning?
If you can do it, we'll let you go.
Wow. So do you move ahead a little bit?
A little bit.
How old are you?
9.
No.
9.
So where are you ahead, for example, in your learning, where you're really good?
Reading and language arts.
Language arts. And at what level are you at this point? You're in the fourth grade, but at what level are you in those subjects?
I'm at 5th grade.
Fifth grade. That's because you were good enough and they just let you move on. Right?
That's fantastic.
Now, in your special class that you talked about, if you're behind and you need help, what happens in that class?
Well, in that class, sometimes you have individual time to catch up on anything, and sometimes we have like a whole lesson, and it's different that way.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Namba, how long have you been doing this?
Personally or in Lindsay?
In Lindsay.
In Lindsay, they would say that we've been on this journey for about 7 years.
7 years.
And that's from theory and philosophy and discussion with community all the way through towards implementation. So a firmer grip on implementation, probably about 4 years or so.
Now you've been, and this is running all through high school, is that right?
Correct. It's a K-12 systemic movement.
So there are kids that have experienced the old way and now have experienced the new way. What are they saying about what they feel about the difference?
Well, the great experience you're going to have is getting to talk to a high school learner here in a minute.
Okay.
That's going to talk to you about that as well. But I think that what our learners appreciate about this different aspect or new system that we run is the fact that they get to actually experience what Javier just talked about, which is that if they're really running ahead of pace, in the past, they were expected to kind of shift back towards the middle of the pace and stay with everybody and not really push the envelope of what they can do in their individual expectations. And at this point now, the push is more on us as educators, our learning facilitators, us as administrators to say, wow, we have this group of kids that's really pushing the envelope. Now we need to help service them over here. How are we going to do that? But that's the responsibility on the adults now in the system rather than on the kids to feel responsible to have to shift back towards the middle of what they receive every day.
I know we've got to take a break in just a moment, but before we get there, I need to ask you, how do you measure the results And then what is the average class size? Does that stay the same as in a standard school?
Yeah, and we operated under under the same class restrictions to get the same funds as everybody else did before. And so you're still looking at a 24 to 28 in your K2 primary realms. It's almost identical to a traditional system. But how you end up using your instructional block when you have those kids looks totally different because you might have 4 small groups that you're really focusing on who are in different kind of areas in terms of their learning that you're addressing at different times. And so how do you set up your system to manage that? And what does that look like? And in your question, in terms of results, it would depend on which component we're really talking about. If we're just talking about state testing, or are we talking about what I really like to focus on, which is our goal with our kids is to really empower them to understand what they're learning every day, to stand up for the fact that they should be able to move on if they're ready to move on, to ask for more support and receive that support. And so if we're comparing our kids now to where they were before we started this model, the empowerment is there, as you'll hear through Javier, as you've already heard through Javier, and you'll hear through our high school learner. They're so articulate about what they're doing right now, down to learning targets that they'll talk to you about.
I'm sorry, Chris, did you say we're out of time here? Oh, a slide. Yes, if you want to talk with Principal Nicholas Namba, there's his number right there, and his, what is that? Boy, that's a website, district.lindsay.k12.ca.us/Kennedy. And then the phone number right there. We'll just leave it up while we talk. But I want to ask you, Mr. Namba, when you started out, did you get fear, trepidation, resistance from parents who thought you were going in the wrong direction?
And from teachers.
Yeah, and from teachers.
Sure. I think any transformational change, you're going to experience some fear. And so the important aspect was pacing it out appropriately, not trying to cause change in just calling it something else or forcing it, but actually understanding the community, bringing in all the stakeholders, having the conversations both with learning facilitators and with parents and with learners themselves, saying, this is where we're headed. Let's build a vision together so that we're unified when we actually go forward with this approach. And that's significantly different than saying, here's the change we're going to make. Now you're all going to be a part of it without any kind of say.
What kind of interest are you attracting from other school districts?
We have visitations in Lindsay Unified, and so we have about 4 of them that are scheduled a year. Now, currently, we've had specialized visits because there have been a lot more people interested in what we're doing, and now we're having about 1 every month. But it brings in from 20 to 50 people on each of these visitations that are intrigued by what we're doing. They're interested in seeing how to go through the process. And so they spend a day walking through sites, walking through our K-8s as well as our high school, talking to our learners, talking to administration, talking to learning facilitators, talking to our assistant superintendent or our deputy superintendent and our superintendent, getting an all-inclusive kind of day to say, this is something that you should look at. And why we're doing that is part of the Race to Top district that we are responsible for spreading a message of what we're doing and why it's different and why it's a benefit for kids.
Well, before we take our break, I want to ask you, if this were to be implemented nationwide in every school district, what do you think would be the effect on education in America?
I'm going to let Javier answer first.
Javier?
Well, I think it'd be great. I mean, every learner being able to move on if they can, and if they need help, they'll get it.
Oh, that's good.
And I would say that they are, to envision a nation where kids are truly empowered to understand, articulate, personalize their style of education, that to me gives me tingles every time we think about it.
That's really good.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about how this would work and how this is working at the high school level in the Lindsay School District. We'll be right back.